We are live. All right, this is the Governance Treasury meeting, December 13th. Philo unfortunately can't make it today, but we'll continue having our discussions. Looking at some events over the last week, just as an update, we've got phase 2 going, which I think is going really well, with showing some really good candidates from pretty much every region of the world, which I think is great. We've got Dom's proposal just put up for phase 2 of the Shimmer Growth Committee. So if anyone hasn't read through that or voted, maybe go and vote. I think we've been doing really good of communicating it out to the community, the committee application for phase 2, and we can continue that with the Shimmer Growth Committee. And then we'll just be waiting on Firefly. Other than that, really the outstanding task I think we discussed the last week or two was that the really remaining critical path for us is to figure out the legal entity, which we've been discussing. And as a short-term solution, potentially, Anja has stated that we can, in the interim, work under the TIA and at least get funding out while we decide on the legal entity. I did ask Philo if he's had any update with that, and he said no, unfortunately. And the kind of bummer about it is also we can't really put the version 3 into phase 2 until we can get that somewhat close to confirmed. So still in that sort of waiting period for Firefly. See if we can confirm that we can work under the TIA until we decide on the regulatory aspect, and then also how we research the regulatory aspect. And I've been thinking about it. I mean, it's just so much time involved to really dive into how we as a group can come together and choose a place. I did reach out to Lexdow and talk to, I'm going to botch the name. I don't want to mess the name up. Let me just look at the message real quick. Svetlink, and he's trying to get with Paulo to give me access to a Discord channel. And what they have, I guess, is a nonprofit that they sort of do a clinics in, they call them. And of course, they can't give any specific legal advice to an individual organization, but what they can do, I believe, is kind of give what their experience and their research has been. So other than that, I mean, that would be great, especially if we can secure that in a timely manner. But other than that, I'm just really open to ideas. I don't really know how we as a group could spend the time to do the research to that we do a thoughtful comparison and then we all come to a consensus. And I'm interested if, I mean, do we think we should try to pay someone? Do we want to try to form action committees? Totally open to ideas here.
I think the action committee might be the best solution, but we are not many people right here now anyway, so
Right.
it would be essentially everybody in the voice would be part of the committee, I guess. How many people are there? 5?
Right.
Yeah, 5 aside from me.
So yeah, I mean, I'm wondering if at a minimum we can sort of hone down to maybe 3, let's say Liechtenstein, Swiss Association, and Marshall Islands. And I'm just saying those. I haven't really researched anything. You know, if anyone thinks there's something else that should be really focused on, and then we can maybe start putting it out to the bigger community of anyone that wants to take some time to try to, you know, we form some action committees, try to kind of get a deadline of, you know, I do better with a deadline, you know, I mean, do some research. I think Adam, he put some really good articles up on Liechtenstein, and then we could really kind of dive into it. You know, I mean, I try to do a little research. I was trying to look for videos and make it easy for myself. But you know, one reviewer was saying that the Swiss Association is good, but when it comes to sort of like token economics, it's not necessarily the best. And then I was listening to one of the government officials of Liechtenstein that was developing that, and it seems that it's one of their main focuses is sort of token um, having precedence in courts that the tokens can be linked to assets and stuff like that, which is really interesting. I mean, I just did a few minutes, but are there any other major countries that we think like I'm just trying to like what could be the next step to get towards the goal of getting a group consensus, and to me it's like maybe we could just agree on a couple of countries and then we can try to develop some action teams to really spend some time looking at those. Adam, I know you're pretty versed. I mean, do you think like putting Marshall Islands, Swiss Association, Liechtenstein, those are pretty good that if we choose one of those we'd be at least in the right ballpark?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not a legal expert, so I couldn't give you like 100%
Right.
guarantee. But from previous research and chatting to people and stuff, Liechtenstein and Marshall Islands seem the best options. Obviously, Swiss is convenient because of the TEA and the legal connections and stuff. It's just there are, like you say, complications when it comes to tokens and certain regulations which still haven't been pushed through the courts and things like that. And with Switzerland as well, nothing goes through the courts very fast.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, Zug as a canton is pretty much the most advanced in Switzerland. So I mean, it's never a bad thing. But you also have to think about all the additional expenses in Switzerland, because everything needs legal, everything needs accounting, and Switzerland is not cheap by any stretch.
Yeah. So, I mean, Linus, what do you think of at Werner of focusing primarily on Marshall Islands, Swiss, Liechtenstein?
Well, I can at least say that at the IOTA Content Creators DAO, so far we have good experience with Marshall Islands. I think I said that we are also not really stressing Snapper too much in any direction, but I have
Mm-hmm.
like we're not producing any edge cases or something. Pretty much what it is designed for. Like we can have a treasury and then liable, and we can have some income, can pay some salaries and so on. And I have the feeling this treasury will also not be too crazy. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? We're not
Yeah.
doing any crazy DeFi stuff, staking, whatever, or
Yeah.
offer banking services like financial services. Not really. We are just giving away these tokens. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think it's all good. As I said, I don't know enough about the Liechtenstein thing, if this is maybe better or something.
Yeah. No,
The Marshall Islands is not a bad choice, at least.
and I think that's, you know, a good point for all of us to know is one, we're not lawyers. Even the lawyers don't know, because it changes so much, and we probably haven't even seen, I'm saying as a global community, like you said, those stress tests in a lot of these countries. Um, so, I think it's key to know that we can do the best research we can. We can reach out to a few lawyers and hopefully get one or two give their opinions, and then we make a choice, and it may not be the perfect choice down the road, but we can, do the best we can, and just things change, and I think what's key is that one, we're only going to put the 15% funds or the 30% post growth committee. um, so it's not like we're putting the whole treasury in and risking that. We're testing something out. It's with the Shimmer tokens. It's only with 15% of the Shimmer tokens. And it's going to give us a really good idea of what works and doesn't. And then down the road, if we start, looking at, hey, do we want to put the main DAO tokens in somewhere? What do we want to use for the IOTA tokens? I mean, that's going to be essentially the question thereafter, after we get some use case with the Shimmer Treasury. So I think we definitely don't want to haphazardly make any decision. We want to do an informed decision, but at the same time, we have to understand this is a test, right, to see kind of what works and what doesn't work. Um, I think, like you said, and what Adam said, cost is a big thing, and you know, I don't think we're going to be stressing. I mean, I think down the road, I think it would be great that the Treasury can do things like DeFi investing and staking, and maybe getting some type of uh, liquidity in companies if they choose to fund back to the DAO and have that on some sort of contractual basis. But like in year one, I don't think that's necessarily what we're going to jump to, right? In year one, we just want to do nice, easy funding, grow the ecosystem, get it going. So if we find a DAO that offers that stuff, great, you know, at a fair price or a country to form in. Um, but I also like, I'm just thinking like, I mean, we can spend 6 months, you know, spending looking for this. Um,
Just just following on from what you're saying there, I think it is important to think about the future though, because hindsight is a very, very powerful thing in
True.
business. And if we just go with something that satisfies our requirements now, that could also prevent us from doing other things in the future. Just look at, like, as Dom says, IOTA's biggest mistake founding in Germany. Like, it is very important that we think about future scope because, for example, in Switzerland, you can't operate for profit in certain avenues when you are an association. So you've got to be extremely careful about what sort of for-profit activities the company actually does. Whereas, for example, in Marshall Islands or Liechtenstein, that's not the case. So if there is potential that, okay, in the future we might we might eventually make equity arrangements with projects for funding, or we might want to invest in certain other avenues, then it's going to be very limited by our jurisdiction on what we're actually capable of doing. So it's very important to think about the future, not specifically, okay, we need this now, but if, for example, in the future we were to do this, would it be possible in Switzerland? Would it be possible in Marshall Islands? Would it be possible in Liechtenstein? Um, so
well,
yeah,
and how can we go about solidifying that? I was presented at the German Stamp Dish, and one of the guys brought up a really great idea of like, let's say someone submitted a proposal for a GameFi project and wanted to put in there that, you know, 5% of all revenue go back, and it's a Web3 or DLT, however that's automated. Maybe it's not even on a necessarily a equity contractual basis, but that's written into the code base of the game, which sounds awesome, you know. And it seems like no one, at least from the Swiss Association side, has been able to definitively say whether uh, the Treasury can accept those tokens. I know they've, you know, Philo discussed in the sense that yes, it's nonprofit, but with all nonprofits in the world, you can actually go and earn income as long as the income goes back to the purpose of that treasury and you're not distributing them in profits to shareholders or partners or something like that.
Well,
So,
yes and no. You've got to be
mhm,
very, very careful about how that profit activity is carried out
mhm.
and how it is contributed to the association or the not-for-profit. Um, like if it's seen as a donation, then generally that's fine. If it's seen as the not-for-profit giving money to a company and then getting tokens in return, that could be seen as equity or another form of for-profit dealing. It's a really, really, really complicated space,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
especially in Switzerland.
let's say this. Is there anything we can do that when we're done, whether it's us ourselves doing the research or, I mean, I even offered the Lexdow guys, is like, look, guys, I'll pay you out of my pocket, and then hopefully maybe the Treasury wants to reimburse me down the road. But I'm just thinking, like, what will it take for someone to say, or someone to give their opinion let's just say, and say, oh, yes, you can do that in Switzerland, or no, you can't do that in Switzerland. It's easier in Liechtenstein. And then the group says confidently, boom, that's the best setup for us. Is that
Yeah,
going
I
to.
mean, this is the position we're all in at the moment. We need a legal expert. The
Right,
problem is it's multiple jurisdictions. So we
right.
need a legal expert on Liechtenstein, we need a legal expert on Switzerland, and we need a legal expert on Marshall Islands. Because for these sorts of decisions, it's not as simple as going, I read it in a blog,
Yeah,
like it
I
must be
know.
true.
I agree.
Because as you say, like these laws are progressing and changing. Regulations, especially in the crypto space, are
Hmm.
changing every month, every week. And it's really difficult to stay on top of, especially when you look at countries like Switzerland, where from one canton to the next, the law is completely different.
Yeah.
Like it's a crazy area, and it's not something anybody in the community can just go, yeah, we make that decision. It's an area that we have to, and I mean have to get proper legal advice.
So we need legal counsel. I mean, and then the question is, will a lawyer even say, come out for an hour? I mean, it did seem like the Lexdow guys were interested and has kind of set up their model of, let's say they come out, essentially it's a meet and greet, showing us their capabilities, and then when we form, we could actually use them. So it's a form of marketing for them. I can see, and I didn't look into it, but I believe they have some nonprofit funds, which is awesome. And I hope I can talk to them and I know I believe Paulo and Svetlik are more on the European Union side. Um, and then it would probably be good to talk to someone in Liechtenstein. I mean, you said you're over there. Could you reach out to anyone and just try to see if we can find someone that has experience that can give us just a cost estimate for just spending 1 hour with our meeting, just and not to give direct, hey, this is legal and this isn't, just to give their overview that of their experience. We certainly know that until any lawyer is under legal representation officially and retained, they can't give specific direction per se.
Yeah, I mean, I gave Holger the link to the legal company that I was recommended.
Hmm.
Um, I haven't spoken to them properly because it costs money.
Right.
So I haven't invested in that yet. But it is something that they're experienced in. It's one company that is specific to blockchain law and the formation of companies in the crypto space in Liechtenstein. So as
Can you
far as my research goes, they're probably the most experienced
can you
in the
DM me their
space.
info, please?
Yeah, I'll just try and find the link again now.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, the actual formation of the association could also be in the form of multiple entities. So there is the potential, and this is another thing that needs to be looked into, especially in the initial establishment of the association, is whether associations can own and operate for-profit entities as subsidiaries. Because I know in Liechtenstein you can own other entities for profit. In certain regards, in Switzerland, you can do the same, but it all depends on the association's activity and the subsidiaries' activities. I haven't got a clue about the Marshall Islands, but they're pretty open to everything, so I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised if it's not the case. Um, but yeah, I mean that's another option. Like you say, like in the future we could be doing all of these other crazy things and stuff. But even if we are restricted in our early stages, as long as the main entity or the main association can form for-profit subsidiaries or can own equity in for-profit entities, then that is also another alternative.
Yeah. And I mean, it is, and it's also it's just the 1 year fund. I mean, it would definitely be a cost, to let's just say we formed in Liechtenstein and then after a year realized, oh man, we should have done it Marshall Islands. So then we go to Marshall Islands and spend another $15,000 forming it and getting the lawyer to do all the paperwork. So I think we just have to balance, can we do the best due diligence to set up for the long term, but at the same time, how long do we want to spend? 7 months doing that? 9 months? How much even money do we want to spend doing that? Um, but I mean, I think that's good. I think we're going in the right direction. Looking at the three countries, and yeah, and if anyone knows any other treasuries or crypto groups that have set up in Liechtenstein, maybe we could go talk to them to try to get their um, experience. And I guess we'll just keep continuing as best we can. I'll reach out to the Liechtenstein. Let me write that down. I'll reach out to the Liechtenstein.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the link now. I'll share it when I get it.
Yeah.
I'll post it in the governance channel or something.
I mean, and let me ask you guys, if I paid out of my pocket and then put a proposal in to get reimbursed, as long as I had the invoice and the receipt and everything clear, I mean, do you think there'd be any issue with that from the community?
Got to put that to a Firefly vote. No, I'm sure the committee would probably go, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I just don't want us to be held back because we can't spend $1,000 to have two legal
Be honest though,
consultants
that's
come in.
something that you could probably put to the EDF, and Mark would probably push that through.
That's a good question. I
Like
mean, that's a
we
good point.
keep forgetting that the EDF is still there. It's
Yeah.
just because it's so difficult for projects to actually get funded through the EDF.
Yeah.
It is difficult for other things to get funded through the EDF, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, for something like that, that might be something that
Yeah.
we want some legal advice for the DAO.
I'll reach out to
Could we have like $500? Like, there you go, done.
Right.
That's the sort of thing I think it shouldn't be an issue getting EDF funding for. As long as we publish the open source, the results of the discussion.
Must record it and publish it. Yes. All right. Cool.
Well,
So
I doubt we'll be able to record it. I doubt a lawyer.
yeah.
would ever
You're right. I was
a
just
legal
joking.
advice
I was just
session to be
joking.
recorded.
Okay, so that will probably be a good start, and we can go from there. I do think that is a key point that I would like to see, that the nonprofit can, I mean, ultimately, at least in my vision, and I'm pretty sure it was everyone else's vision. If I'm totally incorrect, please let me know. But that, the treasury becomes a self-sustaining treasury, and the only way to do that is to be able to form some creative formations, such as, it might not be direct equity, but that the project receivers have the ability to donate and potentially could even write that off their taxes. That's something that I think would be cool, in their own country. And then, a Game 5 system that can give back 5%, or what if I want to give back 1% of my, if I was to win, or any reviewer or any lead, what if they wanted to give 1% of their salary, or anyone give 1% of the salary? Could they go write that off on their taxes, and if any of those DAOs had that legal standing, I think that would be pretty awesome. So we could look into that, and other than that, trying to think what the next steps are. Trying to pin Anja down for to see if we can get the short-term interim. I mean, I think even if we got the short-term interim, we think we should still try to focus on being independent as well. But at least we'd have more time to work that. So
I've just
cool.
dropped a link to that.
Nice.
That
In
attorney
the chat there. Oh, okay. In the
governance
channel.
chat.
Nice. Well, it's pretty good. I think. Are
Short
there
and
any
sweet.
other big things we have to cover other than that?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Well,
Linus,
hopefully Holger joins in the next minutes. He said he would join for the second half of the meeting
oh,
if
okay.
he can manage it.
Great. Um,
I actually have to drop off because I've got another call. But yeah,
no worries.
if there's any other updates or anything, if you could post it in the chat, that'd be cool.
Yep. And also, I'm gonna start posting the meeting minutes in the Notion page, so we'll keep all the meeting minutes here.
Is there a link tree set up? Yeah.
So yeah, and I'll just, if anyone doesn't have it, I'll share the link.
Do we have a link tree though with all of the links to everything on one page?
Well, so the Notion page has like a so then we have YouTube governance meetings. We have proposal links. As the proposals comes in, I put the links here. Blog posts, the bankless consulting, and then we have the meeting minutes here. So this kind of has all the links, and I'm just kind of doing this on my spare time. But if anyone sees a link missing, please let me know. But the next step is to try to get. I guess Holger has a Google Drive link. I'm gonna try to sift through that. But I mean, that's got everything from the DAO Pioneers group and stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, at least from my side, I'm trying to put it all into this one Notion page that has everything, to have one kind of central point. It has the touch point, Shimmer. Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I've got to drop, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other thing that you think I can help with, just give me a shout.
All right. Thanks, Adam.
No worries. Have a good one, guys. Ciao, ciao.
Yeah.
Yeah, Adam.
Also need to drop out.
Okay. I could do the notes on this one, Asa, since I got it. But I'll put
Sorry?
I said I could do the meeting minutes on this one, just to make it easy if we go over anything after you drop
Okay.
off.
Yeah, because okay, perfect. Yeah, in case Holger comes in as well, because I have a parallel call I need to join now.
All right. Take care.
Okay.
Linus,
Bye. Thank you. Take care.
Take care, Asa. Linus, do you guys have a lawyer in the Marshall Islands or a point of contact that potentially, if we paid like an hourly fee, could come and talk to us?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
We have contact. Actually, the whole thing is really set up, and this is, you could also call this a little bit a single point of failure. There's this one service provider called MyDAO on the Marshall Islands, who is the main contact, who sets everything up and who simply does the stuff, because else you would probably need someone on the
Right.
Marshall Islands. I'm not sure if you could start a business or whatever, a non-profit there, with literally no one being being a citizen there, or at least a U.S. American. Although we have Rob as a U.S. American, so this is also good.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, they are. They answered us all the questions all the time. And our main contact there is called Adam. And yeah, we can totally ask him if he would be willing to give us a little bit of consultation here.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. If you could ask them that, that would be super good. We'll write that in there as their main contact. And then, I mean, Anja knows the Swiss Association, so we can use her, I think. And then I'll reach out to Adam's organization there that he's potentially going to work with in Liechtenstein. And yeah, I think if we have a decent kind of subject matter expert from each area, then that should probably give us enough information. Nice.
But quickly asking about rough timeline, I guess we would try to invite them for, let's say, January.
Yeah.
With Christmas coming up or something.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be nice to get sooner, but I think we should focus probably over the next week to try to get Anya in here and clarify, if we do work under the TIA in the short term, can we start implementing that so that we know it can work?
It would be so helpful.
I know.
It would be really good. It would accelerate everything by at least 3 months, my opinion.
Oh, I
maybe 6. All these things are sometimes.
I 100% agree. So yeah, I would say shoot for January, and hopefully we get Anya before, and then I'll see if I could even make contact with the Liechtenstein agency, and then we can go from there. So that would be awesome. And I think most everyone's seen sort of the workflow that I kind of built with Airtables and Notion. So hopefully that, once the Firefly vote happens, we could basically start accepting proposals and reviewing and working that. I thought that was a good idea, Warner, looking at what Holger is here. I didn't even see that changed his it's no longer IF. Holger, how's it going? He is muted.
Give him a second. He DM'd me. He needs 1 or 2 more minutes.
Okay.
JD, you mean the Holger Köter here, who's in the chat? You mean?
Yes.
That's not.
Oh,
I know, that's a different Holger.
No, right. Isn't that Holger from Spice?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, hello.
Hello, Holger. Holger is blessing us with his time, I think, to help us with understand some bit about governance and treasury funding and such. And I'll just give you the floor, my sir.
Yeah, thanks. So we talked about it yesterday at the Stammtisch. That it could make sense for me to join this call, but I can also join any other call in the future because I've been part of the initial EDF committee together with David Sonstable, Louis Freiman, and myself. So the 3 of us were deciding about who would get funds from the EDF towards their projects, and we have done this for 2 years. Before then, I think Louis dropped out first, and then David dropped out. But there were some best practices. So if there are any questions about fund distribution or checkpoints or the way we set it up, then always feel free to ask. If you want, I can give a short intro how we set up the EDF before, if that would help.
Yeah, I think that'd be great.
So in the beginning, we always said that we need an EDF manager, which was a dedicated person who was screening all the different proposals coming in, and they already weeded out all the garbage stuff. And I think this might be more important over the coming months or years than it was with the EDF, simply due to the space picking up on super useless use cases for NFT projects and so on. When they're not utility-based, but only PFP-based. And so in the beginning, this was John Licardello. John always and we also did startup funding in the beginning through the EDF until the authorities told us that we cannot do this because the money needs to go to open source projects and not towards startups in the end, or private equity, and or private funding of entities. So John and later Mark Schmidt. So Mark Schmidt would also be like a good source to talk to. They created like a template, like this application template. I think it's like even public on, let me see, transparency.iota.org. No, this is down. Then there was like fund.iota.org. Ah, yeah, there's fund.iota.org.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, and there's the status tracker. Oh, no, it's here, transparency. Yeah, here. I don't know if it's still working, if anybody like updated it to Shimmer. Because it's trying to load. Yeah, but essentially there's an application template. Mark can also get this, where the I think it's like similar what was yesterday shown with Airtable, that you have like different fields where people want to describe in a form what they want and like what their own competencies are, how they plan to distribute the funds and so on. And what we did was that we set up the committee with David, Louis, and myself, because David would represent the IOTA Foundation, so the like initial like vision of IOTA, if this like if a project would fit the initial vision. Louis had more background in development and hardware, because we were so focused on IoT before, that he could evaluate if somebody would, let's say, we want to build a hardware wallet for 3 different underlying hardware types with secure modules, if this simply made sense. And I had a background in project management before, and management of software projects. And then I evaluated it, like, do the hourly rates make sense? Does the effort estimation make sense? Are there like necessary, unnecessary items which we would expect from the applicants to contribute? And based on this, we John and Mark, or later Mark, they started to weed out like all the users' applications, and they always like wrote a summary, like why an application would make sense to fund, and what are the detailed questions they already see for this project. And then they would give us like a brief intro. We always like categorized like a cohort into 4 to 6 projects, which Mark explained us. So we had like a 10-minute slot usually for each of those projects, and he walked us through. Like we had all the material in the beginning, of course. So we read in detail to each application. Then we read through Mark's first like overview, where he thought this, in which perspective this could bring benefit to the IOTA ecosystem, or where he was also a bit critical. And then we had like of course like a preparation time, so everybody had to come prepared to the meeting, read through all of this, understand Mark's opinion. Then Mark did like a 2-minute intro on his opinion, and then we started to discuss if it makes sense for us to sponsor this or not, essentially in tokens. And the points we looked upon was, does the effort estimation make sense, or does somebody like just see it as a free money grab? Do the hourly rates make sense? Do the deliverables make sense? So for example, if somebody allocated 20K for an office space because they need to solder certain stuff, and they don't want to do this at home, then we said, all right, but if this project goes over like 2 years, it doesn't make sense to allocate the 20K already as part of the first batch of funding, because we always try to batch the funding towards certain deliverables. And then we said, all right, then we also move only 20, if we have like 4 deliverables, then we move all like 25% of the office space into this, how to say, block of deliverables, just to not pay out a lot before. There were some issues where people were starting to make up efforts, and then later they didn't pay their own developers, but they got the tokens or wanted to receive the tokens. And this is why at one point we started to switch towards like also getting development confirmation from everybody involved in the project. So it was not only a project lead stating, I have 3 developers, it's me and I coordinate everything, but we want to know the names of, and like the docs names of everybody who would receive the funding, and later we would also ask them to confirm that certain hours were also like delivered. This might be an over-engineered process, because there are like other projects, like I know it like from Near, like when you go to Near and you say, I want to produce some fancy videos about Near, it's going to cost you guys 50K for, I don't know, 12 videos or 24 videos. Essentially, it was approved within like one afternoon. And then you had the tokens in the afternoon on your wallet address. But we felt that due to the German structure of the foundation and the not so large war chests, we said, okay, we want to do like a more diligent, or like how to say, a better due diligence on the projects before, because we have like very limited funding. So this is why we had like a more bureaucratic process versus like throwing out the money. Then this is when we asked the projects to like also confirm the delivered hours before the funding went out. And projects were able to get like, they needed to argue if they wanted to have an initial funding. We also would ask them, like Mark would coordinate this if any questions came up, which was like 50% of the projects. Questions came up, and then Mark would go back to these projects and say, hey, there are like certain questions, let's like clarify this before. And then clarified it, and then we did the rest essentially directly on Slack. And we didn't require like another meeting because we had laid out like a conditional approval, and only if this conditional approval was met, then it was like auto approved essentially. We always like documented each decision on Confluence, like which is our wiki at the IOTA Foundation. We documented who voted with what, and I don't remember clearly if we said we need 100% vote, so 3 of 3. And Mark didn't have any decision power. No? Like it was always the committee deciding. Mark was there or John were there for the organizational processes around it, and to make sure that all the formal criteria were met. I don't remember if we had like a 2/3 majority or we needed 100% majority. But essentially we had like 5 or 6 or 7 meetings, something like this, on different projects to be funded. And essentially we always like came to a good conclusion. So we openly discussed which problems we saw, and we never reached a point where one said, I'm like totally against this, I have like a veto, and this should not be funded. But essentially then the other two like brought in their arguments, and we always reached a good and thought through agreement why we would fund something or why we wouldn't fund something, because it sounded fishy, or it looked like way too much scope, or it wasn't necessary or we didn't deem it like necessary for the ecosystem and so on.
Nice. No, that's excellent. I like that
And
sentence.
I think it's like also all documented on the IOTA wiki. I can still check it. But Mark, I still have access to some of the internal tools from IOTA due to the advisor role, but it should officially come from Mark Schmidt.
Mm-hmm.
Like he can ask like what he can share about the EDF decision process and so on, and then he can like share, I think, like all of the different templates and so on.
Okay. I like how I don't even think, correct me if I'm wrong, Linus or Werner, have we stated whether there needs to be a majority vote by the reviewers, whether that's 3 of 4 or 4 of 4, or I mean, I guess because it would be 2 votes for tiers 1 and 2 and 4 votes for tier 3 and 4, but we haven't stated whether there's a minimum threshold that needs to be met for a project to be funded, huh?
Well, that's true, I guess, because I can also not remember that we have a certain rule for that. I think we assume that there needs to be a consensus in the end, but it's also true that this can be annoying in some situations, right? If 3 people are for it and 1 person is against it, and this 1 person would effectively have a complete veto with this, which is also not terrible, I guess. We just need to be conscious that this would be the result if we don't have a majority rule vote.
Yeah, I'll put that as a note to discuss with Philo. Maybe we could discuss that Thursday. And I think, whatever the group wants to decide, I think it's just good that we write it in the framework rather than leaving that a little bit ambiguous. But I mean, I would certainly think a majority vote would be. But I also think, like you said, Holger, I mean, I'm sure through those discussions, we're all mature and professional enough to agree, but it would be good to
I
have
think so
that
too.
written. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. Can I share my screen here?
Yes.
Here.
Should have the right to do that. If not,
Here, yeah. Go live, smooth video. All right. So this is like how it looked like for us now. We documented it. Like this is like what here you can see like what John prepared, and then we had like the list of different projects. We had like they were all listed here. Like I don't know everything Tangle, what they wanted to do with all the
Holger, this is recorded.
documentation.
Is that
here.
okay? Just a FYI.
I think it's okay on this level
Okay.
because this is like also public information,
Sure.
and I can leave it like this here.
Okay.
But you can see there were then the different grant cohort meetings, and then there was like, let's see, grant pipeline. Yeah, this was like it was in the pipeline if there was something. Then we had like all the legal documents here. We had some meeting notes. Like this is how we organized it from our side.
Nice. I like that. Were you doing sort of monthly reports for, like the board or the IOTA Foundation or anything like that as well?
I don't know. You would need to ask Mark.
Okay.
Because I was in the grant committee, but the EDF was set up under ecosystem, which was managed by Louis, and I don't know if Louis wanted to have a monthly report or if Dom at this point wanted to have a monthly report.
Okay. No, I think that's really good, and I think that's similar to what we're building. I think the milestone deliverables. I mean, pretty much the web form was, I think a combination of Aves, which seemed a little light on the required information, and then the Ecosystem Development Fund, that web form, and I think really Philo and myself and others just tried to combine the two, and I think I like what you say in the sense of, the treasury is just not a big treasury. Neither was the EDF, and neither is ours now. So, we kind of have to do extra due diligence. Whereas someone like Polygon and Aave, I mean, they've got $200 billion. They could slack off on their due diligence, and if they get rugged on a few, well, it doesn't affect their overall treasury as much. But for us, we get rugged on a few. That's a bigger percentage. How about where we're at right now, Holger, is struggling with where to legally set up the treasury. Have, in your experience, talked to any other treasuries or any DAOs, and we've kind of tried to whittle it down to potentially forming in Switzerland under an association, kind of like the EDF, Liechtenstein, and the Marshall Islands. And I don't know if you have any comments or heard of anything.
No, not really.
Yeah.
Like I was never really involved in this. Like maybe like Mark knows it better, or he can have a meeting. He can ping Dom, and he could have a meeting maybe with Jan or with Anya, because they like have a lot more. So Jan, our financial head, financial exec director, and Anya for legal. I think they like dove into this like a lot more thoroughly.
Yeah, we're trying to pin them down. As everyone's busy, but that's certainly on our to do. Cool. What about I think there's some. I even thought of, there's going to be proposals coming to us. How much is needed also, or how much did the guys in the EDF, you guys like? Is it sometimes better to actually go and seek proposals, good quality proposals, and how much, in your opinion, do you think would be good for, like, should the treasury be looking to fund projects outside the ecosystem, the IOTA ecosystem, or really just try to focus building the ecosystem from within?
I think you should have like some sort of strategic funding topics, what you see is necessary in order to evolve the ecosystem. And this is where also the IOTA Foundation can give some input. So do you need more NFT projects? Do you need more DEXs? Do you need more yield aggregators, more DeFi tools, more developer tools, and so on? And then reflect it to what is currently being built, or what are the huge accelerators in the space, and then think about it could also be like hackathon funding, but I would like all of these questions, like what you do not know. I would propose to write together a list and approach the IOTA Foundation with this list and seek for input, because they like also have like a good understanding what is happening in the space. Like the Touchpoint program has a good understanding what is currently being built, or who initiates what already exists. There's been like a lot of research also like from Dan, what is done in other ecosystems and what are the accelerators in other ecosystems. So they can also certainly give some input towards like sort of like a funding roadmap, and that it can be mapped towards towards the applications coming in, and then you could like see the gap, and then you could decide if you want to issue certain RFPs towards the community for funding. We did this at one point when we saw developer tooling is not really like up notch. Like that we need something like Ganache, for example, in order to accelerate development, that people have like a IOTA development environment which they can like set up with a click. Yeah. And then we also did it with the login with IOTA as an RFP, because this was like a low-hanging fruit for the whole DID development, where then the like Vault ID application was the preferred one. And yeah, I think it depends a bit like what is currently being developed, what are typical accelerators for ecosystems in other projects, and how big this gap is, and then who should like also write an RFP.
Nice. I like that. Yeah. For anyone that listens
Posted
to
in
this,
the
go ahead, Linus.
okay, yeah, I posted in the chat of this group here this chart by Binance that Holger you shared yesterday as an example on how like we can also give a graphic to the community, which then gives a good overview about what topics are currently easier to get funded.
So looking at this, and I've got it pulled up on the screen. So basically the red is they're saying they're seeking to get more of these projects into their ecosystem, correct?
Exactly. Like I think here the coloring is a little bit anti-intuitive,
Right.
right? Because the red topics would be the one easier to get funded because they are searched for. The
Right.
green ones here in this graphic, there are already so many of these projects that they're not so much needed,
Right.
according to Binance here.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So they wanna essentially try to prioritize issuing capital to the red projects, as that's what's lacking in the Binance chain, versus the green wallet and DEX, and of course they already have on there. So there's no point to really necessarily prioritize that capital funding to those. And this would be good that we sort of build this. And I think that is good because we do have limited capital, especially if the price goes down. We're not going to have much. And, someone might say, well, it should just come, first serve. But I mean, I think one of our goals on the short term that we've talked about is really supporting that ecosystem growth, which essentially is going to support the price increase, which is going to grow that treasury. And once the treasury grows, then we have more capital to work with there. Well, cool. And I wrote that down. And I just wanted to say, for people listening, to RFP is request for proposal. So that would basically be the treasury saying, hey, we're prioritizing name services. That's something that a lot of we feel the ecosystem needs, and we would put that proposal out we would put that request out, and then people could submit proposals, almost similar like a bounty in a sense. I think that's a great idea.
And the Touchpoint team should also have like a pretty good overview. So, for example, we left a bit from Spice because we like saw on the right hand side the SAS Web 2 to Web 3. We say, all right, that's a bit of a confirmation that what we want to do with Spice like hits the necessities of the market, like overall, that this is needed. And the Touchpoint team would also know or can take a shortcut to the internal developments of IOTA, for example, with a block explorer or like what is already developed by the IOTA Foundation. And then we can say, all right, now the block explorer is something what the Permanode team is working on with some additional statistics, for example. But we would need like more, exchanges, or we need like more DEX analytics. And then we can essentially come up with our own coloring based on the current status quo.
Right. Right. I like that. Yeah, and I think if we, I'll write that down, that we can reach out to the IOTA Foundation representative and touch point. And also, I think it'd be good to put out to different communities to, we could put in the German Stämmisch and the Americas and any Asian community kind of meetups they do, and maybe get a feel of what the community feels, and try to get something that, really supports the whole consensus of everyone. Nice.
Yeah. I just need to jump to another call in 2 minutes.
sir.
But if there's like anything else, I think Werner or Linus or anybody can just like write me a message, and they can like join any other call, or we can have like if you need like, I don't know, more experiences or to bring anything forward, like always just write me.
Thank you, Holger. Really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.
really cool. See you, Holger.
See you. Bye.
Yeah, I think that's really good. I think, and that's why I actually talked to Holger a few weeks ago. I've talked to Matt and trying to reach out to some people outside the IOTA ecosystem and other treasuries, but I'm trying to get like a list of, I guess you could say consultants, that would just come on their free time and spend 30 minutes to 60 minutes and just tell us their experience with, running these sorts of operations. I mean, we're all very, all the applicants have just great resumes, but I don't think a lot of us are specific to grant funding and Web3, and sometimes it's better to reach out to people that have made some mistakes, because we are going to make some mistakes. But I guess in my mind, I just thought, if there's individuals out there that, everyone just wants to see this ecosystem grow and see this treasury be a success, but maybe they can come, once every 2 weeks and once a month and just talk to the committee, and just kind of give their experiences, kind of act as a mentor to the committee. So that was really good. I think we got a little bit out of there that we can look at, especially trying to articulate what kind of majority we want amongst the reviewers to consider a proposal. And we never really did dictate if it's going to be first come, first serve for the proposal, or we're going to just let the committee act in choosing prioritizing, right? Is that correct? Anyone? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I can bring that up. I think the prioritization is better by the committee. And we can still have those. We're still going to be doing these weekly meetings, maybe not twice a week, either weekly or bi-weekly. So we still have community involvement. But again, with just limited funds, I really do like that sort of developing that strategy of what we fund, what we think will be best for the ecosystem. So cool.
Yes, absolutely. I'm actually a big fan of this.
Yeah.
Because this way we can direct it a little bit. Because everybody of us saw what happened when there was the opportunity to get some crowdfunding by NFT sale on Sooniverse, right? There was 100 and more projects, and probably 80% of them, I don't know, they're not high quality, let's say.
Yeah.
So when there's money to be made somewhere,
Yeah.
people, they just throw it out just because maybe they get lucky and so on.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. So we can at least direct this stream a little bit to the most interesting topics. I guess we can, once the team is elected, we can try to find out what we think is interesting. I guess yesterday at Stammtisch, I gave an example for example, I personally would not be so interested in giving money to some Twitter influencers or whatever, so that they shout out IOTA to some random bot crew.
Right.
But for example, much more interested in creating developer tools, libraries, tooling, developer events and hackathons and all these things to bring in catalyzers, let's say. But this is, let's say, just my opinion, and this was never really discussed publicly. It was not a topic yet for this treasury, but I think the elected team should make it to a topic to
Yeah.
define 4 or 5 points that should be our focus, especially with our very limited funds. Yeah, to get the most bang for our buck, right?
So, who would be the touch point of contact if we wanted someone from there to come in and talk to us and talk about that? And maybe we could have someone come in with maybe Mark Schmidt and discuss that.
Yeah, I mean, we can just ask them.
Yeah.
I have some contact with Mark Schmidt currently anyway. I could ask him to just come here and we could have one session specifically about this topic.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah.
Maybe we can try to get like Mark Schmidt, someone from Touchpoint, and then Dom if he's available, which he's usually busy, but and I think that'd be great just to talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Nice. Yeah, and I think yeah, if we could try to get that from the community meetings too, get everyone on the same page, then I think that's a great. All right. Do we have anything else to cover?
I think so.
I think that's good. All right. So we'll focus on Marshall Islands, Swiss Association, Liechtenstein. Try to get some educated persons from each of those to talk to the group. I'll go through kind of try to recap what Holger went over, and I'll write it up that make it a thing for Philo to look at that we can articulate into the framework, the majority agreement on the reviewers, and then really we can definitely put in as a weekly topic to develop the strategic funding and kind of really get a consensus of what we should be prioritizing with the focus of supporting the ecosystem. Cool. Well, thank you everyone for joining. Yep, go ahead.
I'll also write the article I've talked about.
Ah, yeah, that'd be great.
Going to post a draft in the channel.
Okay.
Once it's ready.
Cool.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
No one else
See you on Thursday.
Yes, Thursday's next meeting, same time, same place. Take care.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Everybody. Bye.